some issues? I would say yes. In some cases, no, not there where even ministers under the presidency, and in this government we have, I think, the Minister for Environment and ESG is under the presidency. Minister of Communications is under the presidency. But we've always seen that the question as to whether or not the advisors are ministers, I think is very clear. They are not ministers. As to whether or not their entitlement and emolument as advisors to the government, as a minister there, I do not know. Meaning, I don't know the fact around that. Sekobane say, if those people benefit to the extent as we spend on ministers there, then I can hear Ira Abujnapo's point. But from where I said these people are staffers, sebi omunye ministers, and I do not expect that we expend on them as much as we expend on ministers. If the communication is such that sebi these advisors are appointed, Abia kaya bom minister kaya bom yepedia, then we probably can have that conversation. But the presidential advisors and staffers, no, they've always been around, and yet it's not a new thing. And I say new thing now compare numbers to the previous government. Not even the staffers and advisors. Sebi omumbro the presidency, Muira Akufo-Addo presidency, which also had staffers and advisors. Not if the numbers appointed do not exceed that of those numbers, then I don't see the point. Unless we are making the point of one, whether the cost spent on the advisors is commensurate as ministers, and Abia Sky Ebro minister, if those are the facts, let's have the conversation about it. And at the the numbers exceed that of the previous government. But we know that is also not the case, at least from the government communication side. Indeed, I personally don't see the argument, because if the prior government ran, in some cases, we're told about 200 and something. I don't have the real figures, but I think that the Minister for Communication mentioned some figures. If you look at those figures and you look at the current appointment that we're told does not exceed 30, and as I say 30 in power, there's still a very big gap. And I'm sure Ira Mahama would appoint more, as is, because to run the presidency, typically you need the best of people to do the research, the best of people to give your opinion on different sectors and subjects. Indeed, it is not as though said the prior government didn't have advisors and staffers. The prior government did have staffers and advisors. In some cases, none the staffers, no, ni advisors, no. Ed also be change what has been appointed. So, Sebi, I am not seeing the argument yet, unless there's a questioning of the cost spent. But the numbers there, Sebi, I don't think there is any issue, at least not yet, from where I sit.
What's your numbers in India? Me no buy argument say numbers no you know hoye. If say what's your near you rakwachi fosu kaya numbers now the two. Akufo-Addo de no ho a yo Akufo-Addo de over 3,000 or so, and all that na nature say you know from na mum yenhwa de wo Ghana web story woye minister na kasa of parliament me ko tu ba bi kakra bi no wahwe. Also President Mahama has formed arguably one of the largest governments in the history of our country in terms of costs to the national exchequer. Why do I say this? Take, for instance, the appointment of Dr. Valerie Sawyer as senior presidential advisor in charge of government affairs. Her rank is equivalent to that of a cabinet minister who also serves as a member of parliament. This means her salary, emolument, and conditions of service are the same as those of cabinet minister who is also an MP. Saa asɛm yi a ɔka wɔ ha yi, wa admit say, you know, there is, in terms of expenditure, in terms of nea yɛyi fi the national kitty ne mu no, it's a lot, and it's comparable to what that of a minister. What reaction was as we hear them?
Okay, so again, this is one example. This is only one person. If the argument is to say all the advisors we're expending the same, then there is a real conversation to be had. So I don't think it's either or. It's a question of facts. No, he's asserted say Madam Valerie Soya, the expenses on her is equivalent to a minister. Assuming without granting that is the fact, and I haven't had any rebuttals to that specifically, so I guess we can work with this as a fact. If we work with that as a factor, currently the ministers in appointment is actually less than the 60. So we can still give him room for her, right? But if it is to say all the advisors appointed, and that is why I'm saying it's a question of fact. I don't have the benefit of those facts. So if the facts are that all the other persons are appointed, sika say or mohono to say minister there, then I think that there's a conversation to be had. But until we have the benefit of those facts, the numbers do not support what Ira Bujinapo can, at least from where I sit. And so if he has the facts as he's suggesting, Waboni Pabakudin, unless I don't have the benefit of his full statements, and he say if there are other people, he suggested Yekomuna Boma is more than what the prior government did in closing, which was about even 85, then probably we need to have a conversation. But I think it would completely not be true to suggest that this government is running the biggest government. I don't think the numbers support that. I do not think we should. Without somebody putting straight facts on the table, I don't think, I do not think we need to bend to the fact in that sense. Yeah, penye mpacho menteunka so over mpacho menteunka.
Lawyer, what men can
Okay, mpacho afe de menteunka.
Mbacha wote?
Mpacho ai menteunka.
Enye Madam Valerie Soya Nkwea Obobo Nkrofo. Also, Mr. Speaker, the president has appointed a presidential advisor on the economy. In Tionoso Count, a presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy, a presidential advisor and a special aide to the president, a presidential advisor on the National Anti-Corruption Program, and a presidential advisor on diaspora affairs. Sankrofo in account. Any 8 and one or patch
Okay, so
one position comparable
people
to that of what? A minister or a cabinet minister. Inti wo share expenses are ye wo hona na esan be siwara. What shall I say then?
Senior Mikayan, if it is indeed true that numbers no or the financial expenditure on these people is commensurate to a minister, then I think that there's a real conversation to be had. No two ways about that. Sebi, from where we sit is a question of what the facts are. So if indeed the facts point to say all these advisors, Sebi, Kai, to say minister there, then of course, it goes without saying that we need to have a conversation about that. Inti, yes, we know that there's been appointment of advisors for different things. If those persons are deemed in real substance, say sika any there or mine say not to say minister, then of course it's only not naming them ministers, but say video mubenya to say minister there. Then I agree with them. I agree with Ira Bujnapo that these persons are Sebi. Yeah, faculty kwan so as a minister for Ababra Yenkaso a minister. If that is the case, then I do not think that this government is being fair to the people of Ghana. If that is the case, but again, I do not have the benefit of those figures. I do not have the benefit of their entitlement. If that is the case, and I keep emphasizing on if that is the case, then I don't think that would be fair. But in sense of the strict numbers of staffers and advisors, they are way lesser than the proud government. And I think that we need to recognize, say, there is some commitment to a lean government, which needs to be appreciated because Sebi, and yet, we saw very huge governments. So if there is an active commitment to reduce the numbers, I do not think that it's something we need to take for granted as a people, except that Oka Bakon Nasa Obefa Echea, then it is right that he brings it up and we have a conversation about it. Intimini Apenyi, the Mimeka Manako say, yes, these are advisors. Yera Mampenyi Mahama Wahokwan say he appoints people to advise him on different things. I do not have any problem, or I don't think there is any legal hindrance to those appointments. The question in terms of the numbers and the efficiency of those governments is a conversation we need to have because Sebi, on one case or the Nipa do you see on the Bayejma. Yinina himself presidency be our staffers, presidency be our advisors. Or the number nankasa see anymore a kamea send the numbers no bro numbers are my penny for omomudi can yeah. So again, I cannot fault him on those numbers. Except that again, maybe I also able to say advisors no in times past almost normal entitlement and emolument was it commensurate senior Madam Valerie Soya no where there are the advisors in the proud government whose benefit and entitlement were the same as ministers. Again, if those are the understandings, then we can make the statements about it. But it's obvious that that the current government, at least from the response from the Minister of Communication, do not agree these numbers to be true. Do not agree, say, in terms of the efficiency of the government is any less. And from where I sit, I think that I want to give them the benefit of the doubt at this stage, because we just witnessed the government that just left power, and we saw the numbers on that. Indeed, that is my personal inclination at this point. But the advice to the government is to say, Sebi, ma onhu ni se Ghana for the liberties Ghana for would give them no is lasting. We need to be very careful in understanding the levels of the liberties because maybe very soon where we will demand the record and budget will be read on Tuesday. After budget is read and after we have a full sense of the direction, the honeymoon may be over soon. Indeed, I think that if the intention say so appointing ministers rather than on the front bench, I think the advice would be for them to stop because the people of Ghana clearly has shown said they deserve and want more from the government than what we've always seen. Into those are my my comments and inclinations at this point.
Sanya nneɛma no kwan woforo sɛ biribi bɛso a ɛte sɛ yɛtumi ɛyɛ sɛ look staffers yɛbɛhia dodo sɛ sɛna sesei asoafo ministers yɛde yɛbɛdi 60 wonye ne sɛ bra so sɛ ɛte sɛ yɛgyina party fo no kɔn so kese staffers koraa yɛmma nkɔ mmoro saa dodo yi so that obi nnɔgye yɛn wɔ ministers no hɔ na ɔmfa yɛn mahyɛ mu wɔ staffers no hɔ saa de no wohune dɛn nea mekɛn
I think sɛ ɛyɛ afa no mmienu sɛbi sɛnea ɛka no sika anofa no ɛyɛ mete aseɛ sɛbi sɛnea yɛkɔto aba nipa president at least the two leading candidates baako ka sɛ ɔde 60 baako ka sɛ ɔde 55 at least there was a consensus around 50 many of the kotoaba, but I think the focus was on the ministers. I don't think there was much conversation about staffers and advisors going into the election. So we probably didn't get any consensus around that. Whether I say we would take a political action in terms of manifestos and expression, because in Komo we are bano, we can't, now would be very clear, say, hey, so okay, so the 50 and also the 40 ministers for political purposes. Also, tell us how many advisors and presidential staffers you use. So, Sebi, faculty kwan embekasa me the 40 ministers. Now, if you appointed 2,000 advisors. So, I think that this conversation is important. And I'm coming away here if we say also to demand from the appointing authorities some disclosures around nipa dodo same potin. Say the ministers 40, for example, now appointed 2,000 advisors. I think that there needs to be some clarity around it. In terms of the civil servants, we are told that civil servants or presidency inquire about 700 people. Say nipa sebi adioson ana ohanson free all the departments and different agencies working in the presidency. In many parts, you would think that the government appointees and as a political appointees should actually be very minimal and help the technocrats and the public servants and civil servants who know the matters of state to run the presidency. Again, it's a question of Kwame we will put enough fetters. Yebefaso mampenyino mfa kwan enkase for political gains obeka minister number ketwa na wafa through the appointment of staffers and advisors to blow the numbers. So I think say unzusu yeno efa baby me know we are going to the extent we need some clarity around that, whether it's a political clarity or is a legal clarity. We need some clarity around those numbers. The difficulty is that because amamu soronko na it's so vast and it encompasses all sectors and the issues keep evolving. The presidency at every point in time would need the best brains. So Sebi, a bedroom rabia, the presidency may need an advice. The question may be, they don't need to be appointed as advisors. Maybe I'll be a consultant for a short time to advise the government. But the question is, what would be those cost implications? In Jaffa, I don't think the efficiency, which is the objective we're looking for, now the efficiency. Say you saw minus that's the ultimate goal. It's not about the numbers per se, it's about the use of money and efficiency of the government. That's the say so if appointing consultants and short-term service professionals will cost us more, then ABI on appointed advisors. But because the need of running a presidency requires the best brains, if you go and take a consultant, for example, and they will charge him more, he's probably better off appointing that person as an advisor if it is more cost efficient. Inti, what's happening also no, I think that we need to, I was saying, share fast to use Sikano and the efficiency of use of money. If we want to put any fetters, whether legal or political consensus around it, discuss it on the efficiency of the use of money, no. And then when we have some consensus around it, we can, whether legislate or through the political document of manifesto, come to some consensus around, okay, now you need some ministers, you know, say, be NIPA 60. But on the staffers and advisors, no, you know, I bet you say, be umbro 100, and now umbro 200, and now umbro 300. I think that we can and we should actually have a conversation about it. Sansei Raj Napo argument actually, if the efficiency conversation is breached, makes a lot of sense. Say, I dare say, you better critical appointing ministers there, then we absolutely need to have a conversation about it so that or mampenyi bia amfasa kwan so appointing nipa 2,000 for example. Inti many apenyi me no ya adwe wo kwan bi so, but kwan bi so no I think say ya nhwe ye moma because of the need for advice. The efficiency conversation would rather be breached if we want to rely on short service and consultants rather than advisors who are salaried. That may be a bit more. I was saying, that is why I'm saying that major my budget now. I want to, for example, see how much money is allocated to the presidency. And that is why I said the budget for me is important. I want to see the past government, how much money was allocated to the presidency, how much money is allocated to the presidency, what is the cost savings. That is where I can really speak of money and efficiency conversations. For now, we can throw the numbers, but I am very, very, very keen on the market on Tuesday and how the market will react. Unim says, me a financial person. I was, before a lawyer, I was in banking and other financial services for about 15 years. So I'm still primarily a markets person. Into Tuesday budget, is what will tell us, so we know if it's commitments to efficiency and use of funds, and lean and prudence is anything to go by, and I said, yeah, kasa keke. Until I will give him the benefit of the doubt to Tuesday. At least Tuesday is only two days away. If you share presidency budget near the total mind penny for from the whole budget, then we can speak to cost savings, and we can say, oh, irrespective of the appointments, the budget allocated to the presidency is probably 50% lesser than prior government. Then we're having a more active efficiency conversation. Minim said they make no what's my say.
Wasum na maba studio na mene o colleagues awa hanso atwetwe nkomo. Lawyer Jonathan Sari akwaba.
Yeja.
Lawyer yenwura buginapo de nkomo bi abeto abonten na no na aya asem a na ye de ato opon so ya ye di hu nkasa hu yi. Na asem ye titi a se owura mahama hye yembo se na aso ya for de mechira ministers obeye duosia eye 60 na mom wo hwese ne a staffers ne ho asema che se wa appoint staffers nso bebre wo hwe staffers ni bia ebi advisors ebi aides and ho niama na wo hwe sika wo de betua wonka ebi equivalent to a minister ebi a cabinet minister and ho niama nti na ne opa kire ne se yenwura mahama sabu oni yenga nini ye aye se kwasiko na nso ogina nkwantia uso wa ba ngo ye ne ketwa ministers na so afon wa ye ketwa wonim se staffers nso wo ho a wonu be ye adwuma na no de wakoye ne kakraka wa adwene kire wodan
me da sipi ye meche tifo ansana me you wasem sana no yewura abugina po na ogina bibiso potokase mo be kind of fact and law
okay
mra na se na asem ne tena nkasa wo hwe se na asem ne tena nkasa na wo hwe mra esan se me yo mrani ni ntino mra na me confess wo hwe mra na ne nyina so ye mra wo frɛ no presidential what friend me pese minya din Presidential Office Act 1993 Act 463 na emra we kire yen kwa president in office no nyuma esese eye appointment to the office nkofo so otumi oma emra ne man ho kwan man tumi se power manfo a wo be boa no na wo run the office. It sounds a president in the office. No, it is the what kind of Latin custom primus inter pares, the first gentleman of the land. He's the chief administrator of this country. Into no bibiania onya amountful. It sounds on unkian to me ejumano. Na sa emrawe man is out to me no. Say as to me power amountful. Obia or not less than 21 years old. Say on obekano hono abuano. Na wahye ne dwumedie a ewo ne office na samra we ya so che kwan conditions of the office of sankrofo ye san so che se otumi fa consultant otumi fa experts ne ade na emra we the interesting about emra we share section 6 o say presidential staff are entitled to salaries, allowances, facilities and privileges that are determined under Article 71 of the Constitution. Into Usha, Obiara president never power no. Now, and I wish Obiara president never power no. Just say na ketuya. Inyoma yede akadia a yede be man or de be yejuma. Privileges be onya. Me no timemu for yenya. Yede man no. Esan say you say o wasudi kesi say so bwa man peninu no yeden o ye nejuma. Into no sankofo no sa nyoma nyina no nko sika ne akode ne akade ayede ma ministers, deputy ministers, and I will show Article 71 de oka ne say won sa nyoma obenya no ye pege no to Article 71 holder nti no wo sha emra no on tre the type of person under Article 71 but so kwase Article 71 ye were ministers, deputy ministers, ye were speaker of parliament, you were clerk to the parliament, you won't kofu bebre, but manano entre obia. And Article 71 you omufa na ketua na kadie enfan pege. It's no osha, it gives the president some discretion. Yeah. It's the president no now to meet say wo ma foul say o ye be me staffer. But me pege wa ketua no to minister. Oh my power, but me peggy work it to speak of parliament. It's all in the discretion of the minister. But into Shemra we are the president. Oh Shemra we are. Emma president no kwine say president sound to me yemra ebe buano ama mra we ayejuma. A friend of Portocasem and America say regulations. So it is incumbent on the president if there's none. Say as say yen regulation che go for na presidency honom. That's if there's none. One peggings in terms of Article 71. And a year I think that there's a convention. Until era okay, so mechanical seven say brain now or no
deputy no
you
deputy chief of staff.
Exactly. Deputy chief of staff no pegging one salary to I think it's a minister. And a chief of staff or pegging it to speaker of parliament. I think it's by way of convention and not by law. So if we have by law, because president there to me by Rama to me to me guys me staffers na me peg one to speaker level. That means academy and who did na ye ma speaker no ni na ketua ni na no onpa ko no staffer no obeden obenya bi. It is eba mrana na eyi no gina so. Na eba fact so a no the me tie no ne kasa mu ne se na ye hwe abanda da etwa mu ne blemple no. Wo sha you what power staffers baby a bonus ɛwɔ ne manifesto no o si ɔbɛpaw nipa 60 pɛ na waboa wɔn ayɛ na edwuma but osha because says I staffers nso wɔ peg wɔn to article 71 because the intention was that we are going to reduce costs of government business and I wish a year of Ofosu Kwacheme carry grant interview be no say now there's less number of VAs to be bought, less number of saloon cars to be bought, less number of allowances for rent, etc. But Osha, is that the case? Because one promise, let's say, we'll be 60 ministers, and that is the promise to Ghanaians. The intention is to deliver on that promise, that social contract. We're not a doctor of politics. That social contract of delivering 60 ministers. Why are not here? Also, oye, and also Ojidi say obey. But yeah, basta fesuma one say bobia.
Enjoy betu makwa nim akodu ba bi obe.
One say ebono. Esisi ehu adwen na tai eboneti. Ebono also obe power system ministers. Na adwen ben. O say aban na twem no ne ministers doso. Amwayen e kaw ebrayen ebeto yen so. It is a implemplen wo say obe fa 6 and the na ya hwe wo staffers no cause wo staffers no one the ministers aketwa ye den it argument na yewra Ofosu Kwache ni kasemu o say we are taking now we have less 60 less young Christians to buy 60 less this thing to buy what of staffers the staffers make up for it one staffers they make up for and now what she say na staffers ni bi what ejuna bi kwakoya bebre na bisa say na it way dan pa no kwakoya a technical advisor, a presidential staffer or advisor to Black Star Experience. What's a one manifesto? But Osha, any adjuma nka Minister of Tourism na SSA oye. Minister designate to the presidency for agri and agribusiness. What can who say Minister for agribusiness? You know what yen the back? It's answer open some farm ministers no until so. Now we are what's answer for baku presidency. So on share agri and agribusiness. Now you kwaya say need more you buy. Aha. I say what can the
kwasiko no yina nkwantia.
It need more if indeed adwene tie boss n'echi. I say obetel eyi for no so. And this adwene done echi no. Yes, na osan fanko presidency ho. Cause o hwempa edwuma ne titiu ewo asoe ho. Yewra openi ejoko ya mitie na o say ye friend no asoe cause obia fane problems no dey abesoe ho. Iti ye friend ho asoe asoe ye hwe humesua so asoe ye hwe apomde so. Iti problems ni na was sector of the economy no. Ye soa de ba ho. It's one juma no usha emudo ejuma no so our ministry than presidency yours is to in my mind is to coordinate and I will share the functions of the officer also the function of the office of the president per the Presidential Office Act 1993 Act 463 also is to the function of the office is to provide the president and the vice president with services they require for efficient, effective implementation of the executive functions of the president and vice president under the constitution and any other law. It means to see you imagine a Juma president no ana his deliverables. I dare say them timamu or manfo no. Our kuchire woni manifesto mu no. Dodo na one ministry ho. And ministers now one obey say juma na man. And bureaucrats. They are the ones so chef free SHS. Free SHS the strain and stress no shepa na with the Ministry of Education. It wasn't at the Jubilee House. It was at the Ministry of Education. It's ejuma no the people no our ministries. It's usha as go for na obe power on so we meboa no. Theirs is more or less in my mind coordination, to coordinate, to supervise, to give feedback, to have a liaison between the presidency and the ministers. And I wish our deputy, if you're the minister, will be the one to be running the show. His deputy can be also the one to liaise with the office of the president. So having and I say power staffers do so one na one no deliver na year and the susuya na adwempo da omampani na adwem ne party na adwem say wo betel kaso amaye no na nidie mu a me hu ni say wo de man nidie mu a
ma me misaw sane a wo kan wonye ne say yen so mfom so ne bi wo yen part say yeso mu ka say campaign be di wo yeso mu de nenin say abanga abana ekono ni titiru na nakufu abdo abanga na asuafo no doso me kira ministers doso enu nti wonte so na sa nkomo ne bai enu nti na wura mahama oso obekọ aduosia A60 eya asuafo na owura baomia oso no so bekọ am 55 edonum anum na sa nkomo about staffers no yen ani ya kan ya team ministers no yen akoda staffers abam nti wunye ni say ho no mfom so no bi wo yen ho say yen anso mu anyina say staffers no so wo bekọ ahin wunye ni sa
they all kind of the wudika me jedi esan say the emrane kanu o say opegi 1 to 71 it's more or less no wakwakoye ministers the deputy ministers yes. More or less
yes
it's no what kind no na kese say yeso ye to ye mwase na ye pension mu na ye say na presidential staffers advisors consultants and he
na obefa
na no na kebe boain na mom nkomo twetwe na course ansa na ye to aba no to ze na no kwaredi kakra nim esanse me kai pa ye roku jeto na o susudua the president want 1,000 staffers 1,000 it's na ya adwumu say hey 1,000 they are then na me hwehwe ye mu na research kaka me ma me hu say waka staffers enya presidency nko it's president yep man peni Ekufo or power amount for one now so do na wo agencies under the presidency are wo civil servants their appointment comes from local government civil and local government service it's no criteria mem say wo lampi one mom this all share Ekufo do ofi abemu no nkofo no power or political appointees so at the presidency no on the one the coin now so do no wo ogusu wo it is all share fellows for Zukuaji o say Ekufo do far 300 now one for less than 100 or so it is all share in common na e course ansa na ye bedu mprempren tibia ye wo mu ya na no kwadi kakra anya den amem it mprempren so ye to make say wo ye civil servants no the Ministry of the Presidency. So, for example, I think Protocol Services Department also they help in organizing events. And they are civil servants. They almost 10 anos. So, what's the presidential officer? And you could terminus. And the president didn't yape. Hano can pay run. What's it? Presidential staffers we are 110 ano. And the president didn't yape. The president qua on the one echo. But civil servants the entisa. It's no prepare so yanka say the civil servants now what share president office of the president national now where staffers na it's no
ababa
sand credit no ye here or ye politics
ya baba som ya baba na menko lawyer sebe lawyer akwaba
ya emia
lawyer enkomoi ekoso na meje se watibi wanka bi ya wochi den na woka won ne ekoi mahama wafa ministers aduosia se no kan no staffers any aids owura gina pose wo keka boma won aka tua na etos utie lawyer Jonathan Sara ne o kire ne se adwena edachi ne se no ne se oreto kaso de any anka staffers no so onko no me figures kakra bi na nte kaso saa asem no hu ne dan
dog me da se na mema yetiefo ne ahwefo nyina achen anopai enkanka memanfo ahafo ano southwest dog nkomoi ebefri hi anache se free ya amanyofo a o sa na meka no straight away my learned friend amayen the roots in law nti menko ho bebree na me de ubisa me dog adwuma no a ewo ho na sese ye ne som Ghana no eho na me focus wo say discussion no center around the number of people we have na the chairman say the leaders, the politicians who are leading the system, they are failing. God said, Okofenipa 200 as ministers. Now results na ye nyano. Ghana for what to economy ni ko ye bibi e koso. Ye move from say our middle income to this is a first class worlder. Inti embe. Why the baba bet na se bio no aba bisa asese say staffers ye saying, ministers ye saying. Nemom se afa nipa ne bebrebe na se ye hunu mpuntu a eba yen ya brabo mu a. Eno na the discussions nyina eba. The number of presidential staffers, the number of ministers ni ade nyina no. Utie argument ni nyina ekokosi say bo minor ka. Enti ye be run lean government a. Na se lean government in the chane say ebeboa amiate esikasem so. Yehu say the first term of President Akufo-Addo, ministers and deputy ministers no ano ye kakra ekosoro admitted because okachire yen say adwuma na opese wo ye no hia say nipa de o ma ye adwuma but akọ the second term mu no ohunu say there be amwa into ye review ho ekate number ne ba down eno na President Mahama ba cast ono so ba ono so be kate ne feather na sade ubu be kwasiko na nso gina nkwantia ene ne ekoya na aye bae se hwe yenua panyin ana yenua kuma na whatever philosophy ko ache ne argument awaba be migizina abu gina pasama o kan wanka say President Mahama afa 100 staffers o debi President Mahama asema ka che so ni nipa aduosia amuro aduosia na bebu o man kronkron Ghana. It is all kasa asem ne kire dia ne kire say e wo yetrim say o ye bebo nipa aduosia ho ka. Onimonyam for philosophy ko ache so e de na ndisem e ba no o ka kire yen say sa ade wo ya President Mahama aye no ni nipa aduosia e ba bebu man no de kire ne say ye cost e be ko form VAT yusu ebeko form rent ayetua ebeko form fuel enuoma nyina eba abeko form enu na masa argument we hu ahia say wa be kire Saudi 60 ministers and deputy ministers ena eba be di dwumade a ene na as I say the staffers nyina aka ho a enkekodu sa system because the reality is this: a presidential staffer equates to a deputy minister. And the advisor to the president is even higher than a minister. Then when we go to the senior presidential advisor, and Honorable Ebujinapo Echimuno, and also you're higher than the presidential advisor. Ono or to say MP, or sign a minister, no say cabinet minister. And to be yourself kuta position no, the entitlement no. Yadbema say nipa no. It is yakikabom ni ehwe sikasem dia so if you listen to him well, he was talking about the exchequer. Si ehwe sikasem yie dia. Na in effect no, yate so kra na yente so. Na yensa hunu bi on say President Mahama omo the ministerial and as the staffers no enwieye. Owo opportunity say obobi ka ho bia no say yeda sori ya. Yes say obi ye the Black Star was the director something Black Star. Ye nim eda ye be sorry. Na fe director senior advisor coat of arms. Na ye boboko. Enti say ye oppositioner as I see abo aban na beti. Kame as a comparison bebre koso enye ho na me ehia me. The president e ka kire so obeba abeye no. As a responsible opposition on tena ho yepe omani yo enye ne seye ene nke be ne nhwe han ya na oboko no boko na afi akwa do 200 300 yes hey ya chill there be eno ne pese ye so ano ne de nsese nyina aba mi ye papa o ka kire so ne nipa aduosia sei wo ye atwam wo ha enti so oboduam wo ho so obesom wo ho so obe ende ne mo mamu metu futuro wi ye ni say mudi nipa aduosia enti ebo nipa aduosia ho ka ye hwa now the information ministry no say ya scrap any hobby but ye wo your friend is saying minister in charge of government communication now me feel say eno ne ba ye no e ba be end now be take charge of the worker minister of information not oye ni nyina not the presidency na aka ho but as our presidential advisor on media also be double up as a different office from that of the minister for communications at the presidency. There were directors of communication at the presidency 1 2 3 4 4 of them. After yourself free director of communication and so on. Yourself 2 communication specialists as our office on them. Some prefer a nipa omu mama ya invite omu nti ye hunu se sa we nu nyina wo. There were technical communication assistants and media aides as our yes our assistant media just a liaison officer a whole lot et you be say sa nipa we nu nyina so no obi ahia team on be adwuma hu so it doesn't just lie in one person for example the minister in charge of government communication no or when 8 or when nipa etwa ne ho ahia on be adwuma to say the office of the information minister et you be say communication cry information ministry eno na si ho no yes I confirm presidential advisor to media ono so ba besti ni team oni omo e ba be ye adwuma it is like your information ministry cry wo ho no ma wouldn't that have been better than say ene ya chiche mu ayekuta be 7 our presidency e de adwuma no mo ba be ye eno ne argument and as a discussion a person have no enye say ministry say ya okwa agric wo ho trade wo ho yes minister for food and agriculture uko trade ministry so your man minister for trade agribusiness and some as industry or something now okay hue and cry but otuko no doctor waye adwuma ni abobi ni ade ahye ho ono so de no ye kofa bi free agro business ni akofa bre free trade nso trade no agro business and trade and na food and agriculture so de enim ba bia wo na yakofa ni mienu de abom so director ma haya. So we see some of the positions now bana yehunu afeni ede aba say yanhwe yi a ye be boa baby ye be kwa akoduru no oban no e be koso eblidi enti say yesi asesa ni e resete ni e koye nim dia yehunu sa resetting no we yanfa metu dwa enkobia ni say president Mahama appoint system yeti omoka there be entisa yeah president Akufo-Addo the second term no say no regional deputy regional ministers were twem we yin nyina afiri ho enti wo ye minister of a regional wo na wudi udwuma now president Mahama be appoint region bia nipa baako a oya presidential staffer it is a region bia or presidential staffer na presidential staffer no ni mudro et say deputy minister na nya ministry na no asa deputy minister san was appointed you the same thing and na wafa contract kwanti ade a president Akufo-Addo the second term ohunu se emwa nti wayi afiri ho no wo wafa kwati kwan bi so de aba behim ase yenye din da bi entimi nye din and say the person 16 the way I appointed omo regional organizer bia NDC we are regional organizer nko ade a automatically ya deputy minister and as a presidential staffer let me use the right word which in effect is a deputy ministerial position. Media de ehia menya ne ketwa ne sa de o ka ye no se osusu se akwakodu point bi wa ba betina akodwan ade am respect president for kese ba ko ho no oyo opposition leader no o kan sem bebre ba o betina so no se de o ka ni different from the wa ba beto o be apologize it is a president Mahama say ade me ka se me de adusia nanso eye bunkam afa me so adwuma me pese meye na me pia Ghana ekọ nanim no na me reset no afa ma hunu se sa aduosia na me kan na enya adwuma dia be ka bi kire yen Dem emfa kuntuna se na emfa regional organizers nyina mo position baako. Who? You see the appointments na ekoso no. Who say nipa ne bebre ani age we dey deserve san a waye adwuma. Wo hwe ni nyina dey beka so waye adwuma no ane obi a said the enemy na no pe wakọ radio so bebrebe wo bra no opposition wakọ TV so bebrebe e bra no opposition ye the man is President Mahama wa ya ade wa reward there be o anya ne sa ne ye pe no man ni mu ye pe one we need visionary leaders edikanfo a omadwene mu do no one is ni suade hunu e ma Ghana na mom se obi e kasa ye te na sam da bia wo radio so nti yama the position no na hefa ne yekoya na ye so me I look at the effectiveness of the appointees and as appointments that have been made no that is where my focus is and to me there I think say hwem ni nyina mu a appointments akoso ni nyina na President Mahama so amfa na esi fo mo be feli because ekuku damfo ewo mu ono ane party no NDC ni by say dey akọ ne say ya appoint wa na ebisa say ye campaign no ye hu one megina stage ankasa one call radio station anko kasa enti nipa bit say o doc class say na say o ye now serve or mine in a different capacity
me
you want what na make
na me ya den
me see in a different capacity
me say na me ya den this is a different capacity
some me ho dia wunye and me ho dia oye ni wo
me ni party bi am
me ka so
na me ye a different capacity
but you see with what I know about you the minimum fa wo no I think you can even serve in a different capacity masaka bi o
na say the colleague go in department is our Ghana Ports and Ghana Shippers Authority
yes
different capacity
no we dey call honum no
me fi classroom aba
yes why dem waye adwuma anopa bia no obo akufo ado aba echi obo nachi nti etu na waye adwuma wo mo obi echi o ka no se de esese o ka no I listen to you.
Nti un pesa capacity am wo mi.
E so ko wanim chen sa na pesa me kire. Wo dia ko fa ni fichire. Doctor fichire. Na ko hye ni fie. Ba bi o fa yan fe na isi ba bi kwa wo. Eni o ma eso odua wo dia grass cutter wa yen. Fish system what put in place the compound ketu abi no. You see you can see say nipa no owo vision such people and I say more position. Enye say ya frɛ yaba radio so na eno na ehye nkrofo bi kutuba okɔ radio so a onko twa opposition no president kra na yedi natam kan dindindin kan yayaya na ɔkyena yentam de brebi ne emfama those rewards na emwa na me kan so a efiri 3 kosi 3 efiri asofo ya hemfo ya politicians ne ene am adu ba bia yadru ya bobi din se sie say meti ha ni abo minister deputy minister and as bibi presidential advisor me sofo bebose mahemfo bebose adintia ya shisha bibi say me deputy minister me minister empom what TV so ameka say so bi hia me na se menti me anyi sika amana no I disappointed at times you leave the studio and people are outside waiting for you as a politician. Why? Because you're taking it say once you have a position no so abrabo sesa na menya position he fa na mabrabo no ense free so it means that you in one way or the other na you endorse corruption because me kowram na mabrabo nyina sesa all of a sudden na aduane e medie sesa ka medem sesa de me ye bia sesa na me pay so ye kwhwa ye say MPC 15,000 and entisa na eno no e de be nko na wo ma utimi de sesa ho sa it is ye ka say ye hia lean government a yanso ya omemufo no so no yanso ye hu say attitudes bi o ha SSS they come say expect so much from an appointment. That is why now parliament now the minority has turned majority and the majority minority because majority ntimi nko ono so ko pa appointment we anya appointments dey see a okoni kroma asamaba
yababa na oka medena we say different capacity at the church radio university exists for niema huwebisa teaching research and extension intiniami extension service there are another capacity
ubeti ya more
yo another capacity me call hamano so na me call Dr. Akpeko Agbebade doctor good morning hello Dr. Akpeko. All right. Yansanka doctor you call lawyer Sumba lawyer Masamba ho lawyer ho lawyer what in ya webusan for lawyers and work and nkomo na ye de na wohwe se na niema koya ujeri say ye hia sa presidential staffers advisors aides ye hia wona say bureaucrats or technical officers civil servants ye nimu say won na sa speed work yi woye aben baba aban beko won na wo ho wokura aban asen won na ye adwuma ni nyina me no ye nimu adenti na ye say yembre nia ye hwehwe advisors aides and honema bureaucrats no civil servants no wouldn't you mean yes adwuma ana a job for the boys party funti say PBB ma won
Meka Sinipi on the question of Sikano, say Sikaseni say or presidency and I say all these staffers. Say Tinamdika Kaino, Meka Sinipi say we can all only answer that question after the budget is read. Into whether or not this government is expending more in totality running the presidency compared to other governments. At best, together with Mini Animal Studio, we can all only speculate until Tuesday. We do not have the fact. We do not know what it is, unless they are privy to what the cabinet approved the budget to be. Into that, I think I want to make that point. If the ultimate goal, Sika say, and Sika you see for purposes of running the government machinery, as I said, is something we can only know after the budget is read. So I want to give this government at least until Tuesday when I can see the budget figures, and then I can have an active conversation about efficiency of the government or otherwise. That's my first point. There are also in terms of whether or not say you hear staffers and advisors, and why can't bureaucrats do it? I think that to a large extent, saying I can MPP, I think the 2019 budget had about 1,600 and something staffers. Japames at the time, if I remember, came to explain, say the budget putting 1,600 in the budget was only to put it as a ceiling, but actually there were only just about 1,000 of them or so. And out of the 1,000, I think just about 700 of them were civil servants. The rest were political appointees. I'm making the point to say that, yes, you bet me use civil servants and public servants too. But sometimes no specialized skill sets would require that you have different people. In Tisebi, me civil servant and a public servant, many in sound, but no na me pesa me. So I probably may never be inclined to want to serve as a civil servant or public servant. But na minim dia o baby no here presidency for purposes of some advice. In that sense, as the law says, you probably would make them a staffer, a consultant, or whatever the range of options available to you are. I think say yes, the civil servants and public servants are the key architecture of running the presidency. But on some specialized matters, president from seeking the best advice they could on matters of state. And I also don't quite agree, said the role of the advisors and staffers is actually coordination. I completely disagree. I think that Ejuma Ayedimpa Ewo Maibia so is the president. Because I think sometimes we take it for granted. I'm one of the people that every president who is had to ascend the executive powers of every nation. By the time they are getting there, the weight of responsibility on them needs the best brains they can get anywhere in the world, not even limited to their own jurisdiction. Because the decisions you have to take or those of us in the country, we don't even have the benefit of all the facts and all the figures available to any president. But rightfully so, as people know, we demand a certain quality of life. Sometimes we don't even have the benefit of. So for me, I wouldn't be too hard on questioning of saying, oh, a presidency should not have the choice to choose his advisors. I think that the president should have the liberties to choose the best people he thinks can advise him on any issue. And there should be no limitation in sense of that. The ultimate question, saying now, say, and how much money would you use in doing that? And that question of the money you use in running the presidency, should matter to us because it's taxpayers' money. So if that question of the taxpayers' money, how much exactly will you spend in running your presidency, absolutely is a conversation that is of public merit. But that question, as I said, is only a question you can answer when you have a budget. If you do not have a budget, is a matter of speculation. So I would be very happy to look at the budget on the presidency on Tuesday. And if indeed it is more than Yera Akufo-Addo's presidency and is not accounted only by inflation and I say the rise of cost of things, if even there is some increase and is not explained for by the naturally, then there's absolutely no need of appointing NIPA 40 to run a presidency which has budget way in excess of the previous government. And then it makes no sense. I don't care whether you use NIPA 10 and NIPA 19 and NIPA 5. It's of no consequence to us. Indeed, I think politicians would put the spin where they think the spin ought to. Indeed, one part will say, we're appointing NIPA 100. He will say he hasn't appointed NIPA more than 30. For me, it's neither A or B. It's really a question of what is the nature of that spending on NIPA 30 and NIPA 100. And then we can have a more progressive conversation in terms of budget and how much money is allocated to running the presidency. Until then, I think that the president should have the liberties of appointing Obia Osusu Sesebio Ounimdebia Bebuano, Emana shoulder the heavy responsibility of running the president, He should have the liberties, except that liberties must be measured in terms of cost efficiency. Many are the American Manakusino. It's a question for Bioha. I'm very happy to speak to those.
I just say you hear expert advice no money sani man. Na me bi say so yo gina so doctor meba wo ho lawyer meba wo ho na menko hamano so Dr. Akpeko, good morning. Hello Dr. Akpeko, good morning. Yeah, Dr. Akpeko, mpacho on mute. Hello Dr. Akpeko. Dr. Akpeko, kindly unmute. Okay. I'm say mensankan. Mamenko Dr. Lawyer Sombao. Lawyer. Wosha. Wunye ni se sa brason se eti se yehwe se ye advisory body presidential advisors no honia ma wunye ni se ye pese ye hwe se ye bema ye nsika ye tua wo sampani hu ebeso abapa bi aman. In other words, ye ensure value for money. Aden na ye ntumi form a body bi like think tank bi across the universities and all the political space. Say ye wo political scientists be 20. Ye ho kire en wo politics mu a ye kwa ko bi sa won asem bi. Won na advise the government. Economics, same. subjects ni nyina yenka say ni pay what the government payroll so enu nti government ya wonka wunye ni say no kra de ebebo ya nganka ye moka bia saden sa suggestion asempa.
I think that's a very, 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 very interesting recommendation to say that at any point in time, the government should be able to summon the best brains and say, sir, give me some opinion. Yen says the minim seni esi ejma seni auka and wajma teaching, research and extension. I don't know whether the extension services know in that sense, if you're summoned by the presidency, whether it would be without fees. I do not know. But if it's indeed a question, say, if, for example, the president should have the powers to summon the best brain to give him whatever service without cost, that would be interesting. I don't know how it will work. Say, you, a mini lawyer for me, he said presidency just calls you and says, lawyer for munye ejuma bi na mun paper mame for advice because I think you're the best at this. I'm not sure we're entirely free. I don't know. But if it will not be
funny say wafa advisor na wutua na be say for purposes of this conversation wutua na be say 200 Ghana na wafa university consultants na wure mobia 50 say fa kan salary ho na boa mi je di say ubenya nkrofo a eye won man nti obeyi won yemai pa sa de we enya Ghana kwa na wo kwa amanga won aduani mu a utumi amanga no ho kire na utumi kɔ akrachefo no ho wo se mumu ayen nti e ho na meka se sika no obetumi achem kakra de kakra ka professionals and think tanks no wo be form say group na be form no wo de kakra ka won aketua ho a wo betumi aye biribi e ho yemfa nkomo ni mfi won yen hwade.
Right. The all can me know ya dream and senior the ultimate goal and objective would be efficient in managing resources. Indeed, if that is the pathway which would guarantee as an I my sika say and sikana use will become the optimum pathway. I mean, why not? But there may come an acquisition. I've been privy in doing some work related to government business, sometimes with some international lawyers in transactions. I've been privy in 1 or 2 transactions, not now, in times past. And I would tell you for a fact, say, it's not the cheapest adventure. Into the mechanism, in pursuing private consultants, it may look like, say, it's easy, or it may look like it is the most optimum pathway. But I can tell you from some past experience, it may not exactly be the most optimum pathway. The American man question is the share there is value for money, as you said, in procuring advice, in procuring services, in running presidency and all that. In that end, no, mpanyinfo na ka say your kwan bebre fa so a ye do baby ayenko nti wunsusu ye me no ya adwen say it could actually be a very, very, very brilliant one to say at any point in time get all the best academics on the subject to give you a paper, maybe maximum 3-pager, condensed, high level, refine it to optimum decision points, 3 levels. And then you can have the benefit of that. For example, we did a research paper for 2025, and we published an outlook of how we think that different sectors will behave. It's a paper that has been widely accepted, and the feedback is being widely recognized. If people want to, or the government wants to use that paper as world researcher, nothing stops them from using it. But I'm saying, if, for example, if they commission it does not mean the cost will be any less than hiring an advisor in the presidency. Indeed, I can only speak again. I'm minded by truth, candor and the fact. I think say in every situation, no, for me, the budget is the ceiling. If the government says, now mining presidency can say, Abia, presidency in Afimono, your budget bro 10 million. Now you say 10 million is the most efficient way. Comparing that to proud budget, 10 million is way optimum as a budget for presidency. I do not have a problem in terms of how they use that 10 million and the pathway. So far as it guarantees us the outcome we're looking for as a nation. There are promises, there are expectations of the people. If that pathway is clear and the budget is efficient, the presidency to get to those ends in those efficient allocation of resources. No, Sebi, I will not be too hard on them. But it can actually provide some of the high value, low cost services. Because if you pull 5 professors in a certain area and say, give me a 3-pager, well-researched opinion on, let's say, mining, you have the benefit of knowledge of about maybe combined experience of maybe 100 years. So that definitely cannot be argued. I hope say Penyufo and would bear in mind some of these recommendations, except to say for me, the budget is the ultimate question of efficiency of government or otherwise.
Lawyer, ube so na meba o menko hamano so namne Dr. Akpeko Agbabade nkasa. Doctor, Machien.
Hello.
Doc, F1.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. F1.
Mo fole ke mi ami phone ya.
Doc. Yo, Doc. Yangate President Oshe Ubo, Oshe Mebo, Oshe Ghana Football. Say Obabo modern na asuafo me kire ministers a wonga ye 60 no obi beke so waye na ne ka ho ne presidential staffers efe de wa pow advisors policy advisors 8 na ho niama na utie ye nwura gina pa sika wodi tua wonka no ebi wo ho a equivalent to say wutua minister ka ana MP ka ana so obi oye cabinet minister ana so obi oye cabinet minister no san ye ayi wo friend den MP enti akwa ye se kwasi ko no ogira nkwantia doc wadwene ye woden wo sa asem as a political scientist.
All right, me that say me share at the phone ashefo ene my brothers are studio ni omo Zoom omo contributed towards the program. Me share asino me eka se ministerial appointment ni nyama minister what lawyers was studio ho and omo account has some the constitution doesn't put any limits on the president as to the number of ministers that he said on fire ejuma. The constitution is say obe to me afa dodo a ohun so be to me ama ejuma no akosu ye. But that aside no oye ni campaign no oshebo say winning election now on for ministers are ebebru 60. So far so good. Wa yenwe juma ministers no any deputies don't munya do 60 year wa ye onwe juma. But nia misro makatre nipa menomu adehun komoni say politicians no omu ye some way omu beka way na omu afa kwan foforo so aye be foforo, like you give with the right hand then they use the left hand to take it. That is what I am saying. Nia misro ni say yanhwe ye a 60 no His Excellency John Dramani Mahama obema 60 no pepe ana endro, but Nia Akanu say Yanshaya, Ebekwa do presidential advisors and presidential staffers. Ama say Yanshaya, Nia Yempese Ebebasunu, Enuna Ebebasu. But Metro, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we say, credibility now, over. Aye one mu arishamo aye one mu say obetumi aye adwuma de we aye penu onhwe su na onye na manimfa bibiti say adada mu adada a odia apre na wanya to me manimfa sa adada ne mbaba onhwe su na ebona wa hye no on disu so that ye be hu say adebia politicians be catch ewo Ghana mu hanu. Like they try to go by it. So that is my preliminary comment on that.
Yo, Faye Osha, younger do, but say, Osha, I act now, establish the office, that is the Presidential Office Act 463 now. I'm a president who can so be far advisors and who. But do you think, sir, you as a public administration scholar, and we here, when we have bureaucrats, war ministries, departments and agencies, why do we need them?
Yeah, Medasi. I think that the issue of bureaucrats and politicians, no, sa issue no, very long. It's been a very long problem. We have Woodrow Wilson, or the by from politics, administration, dichotomy. Yes, Woodrow Wilson came up with that some years back. And the whole argument now, our politics, administration, dichotomy, say, government come and go. Abide call, abide bar, not abide echo, but public service. Within the public service, no, we have the civil service now. No, debia aban webeba na eko aban fufuro beba, but the civil service is there. So for me, as a student of public administration, no, I will strongly argue, say, we should do away with this appointment of politically exposed people. Omubefa civil service ejuma eyenu anka ikamen kwa de ji say but we cannot move away from that simply because of the nature of the politics that we have in Ghana. Because Obibia obe a winning election no ope nipa oji omudi. People who are trustworthy, people who will be loyal to him. Omu beti ni policy na asi. Omu be buanu na ni policy nubeye or ni policies nubeye juma pefenu. Those are the people that we are looking for. But the civil service, as we have it now, mostly is being highly politicized along partisan lines. For me, politics no any problem, but the partisanship na ewomuno enu na edi how neighbor partisanship because you can't rule politics out of public administration. You can't rule politics out of governance. But it is the extreme partisanship that we have adopted in Ghana. No, that is where the problem is. So, back to my point, I think that yes, we must practice politics of consensus, whereby, irrespective of the party that is in power, that consensus should be there. We should have that level of trust in the civil service that they will be loyal, they will be apolitical, they will be neutral in their assistance to the political executive arm of government. I think that is where the issue. So for me, from where I sit, Meka Chose and Kamin Kwandia, we should build a civil service that is reliable, a civil service that is dependable, a civil service that is neutral, a civil service that is apolitical, so that Abambia Ebeba Ebekono, at least they will still be there, and then they will help instead of at every point in time when there's a change in government, then we are appointing new people. Of course, we have issue of what is the name? Issue of the loss of our institutional memory, because when people are there, after 4 years, they have acquired knowledge, they have help in the work, they have a lot of information. Now, when you and the way they even ask them to go away when there's a change in government, I mean, it's so hostile. That's one. So there's a loss of institutional memory, which is very key for the continuation of every governance system. And then we also looking at we are also looking at the issue of professionalism. What is the capacity of the people being appointed as? So institutional memory. Omu ekono omu aye nyama bebre omu kono ebia omu jai we your friend is saying handing over note and omu jai plan information na ewo nu endorse wa ebeboa. So institutional memory a problem. Secondly, no nipa ye epa omu se omu ye presidential advisors no omu tibeni saying what is their capacity? Area ye appoint omu se omu beye adwuma no omu capacity ye there mostly no. I mean, not with respectfully John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, but you look at it from the time of independence to date, it is mostly party apparatchiks, party loyalists who are appointed, and it's just few people who are competent enough as presidential advisors. So the issue of professionalism is very, very important. You see, we also have, yes, we have career civil servants. Omu awo adwuma no mu ache omu akotre ni bebre omu anyatitia bebre but abaisisa na se abafofo pa na yakofa obi foforo si ono ombedi omusu ombe presidential advisor way anyway ebe ye source of demotivation say omu ni beji say omu beye adwuma no how beba the problem beba because someone is me come hu ye adwuma no kran say advice is the way am I adwuma no the way am I bo me hu mode no aban no onhwe me right aban no onhwe me so a very very big problem and then also affecting what you call public policy development, and also the problem bar, and all boils down to the issue of capacity. So,
yo, doctor, you pursue your second topic. So, in 1 minute, what summary, concluding remarks was our topic. So now, you call second topic and also, yo, concluding remarks, 1 minute.
Okay, me that see. So I think that the issue of politics administration that got to me no. Idea politics no yen to me ye free public administration mo and aban beko but public service no but niam mepe atre ni pa ni say yen boy ye homodin na yen free extreme partisan politics yen there are public administration system no yen bo modin na yen ye free ho enu ben hia say omo ye adwuma wo public civil service no they should be highly political omo bomodi na omo ye neutral and they should exhibit a high sense of what professionalism ewo adwuma omo ye mu at least we mu dia once upon a time or once in a time no obi ben we say at least this public administrator or ye adwuma kama and then opportunity beba amanu at least there will be a change in our politics whenever there's a change in administration. Thank you.
Yeah, Doc, I'm say it's an say oka kire me say wo program bi a obekọ enu nti my second topic no me pese wo start kakra na fe okwa na fe mpanimfo atua so mpanimfo meba mo ho na mama mo concluding max it's an so no pese okọ doc second topic in ye hwe a political civil service any the problems are yenya one would have expected say anke no the problems we bring. Now here you are, your topic is a apolitical civil stroke public service under siege by politics. Nia ye say, Oko Osho Mengma, yenya to abewi 7 December. If you saw that could see January 7, we be hand over presidency to the Nia winning abano. We don't know who is in control. Anka enyanwa anka ntese banasa because government not so no unwie ne tenwaye but here you are ube hu say ye hu ne owo control obi aka kire so emfa ni power ha hwe na wanye expenses wa ha hu say e ba ne sa ha ha onema because you and I as student of politics ye nim say ye wo ayi from appointment and ye wo bureaucratic executives ye wo political executive those who come under the banner of bureaucratic executive work government in collapse here one and political executive any bureaucratic the bureaucratic they stay with government they stay in government but political executive they go with the government doc what's your view about this?
Okay, me that's it. At least radio, any television, I mean the role of the media is first and foremost to inform and educate. I think Ghana, we mostly know need public service, any civil service, you use terms anyhow. Until me person me for we say na me correct is
yeah, church remove what is civil service, what is public service?
Yes, ufa public service, the big picture. So within the public service, we have what's called the civil service. So if you look at Article 190, Clause 1 of the 1992 Constitution, it provides for the public service of Ghana. And civil service, one of the institutions within the public service. And other institutions of public service, we have the judicial service, the Ghana Immigration Service, Office Service, Ghana Police Service, Omudosun. So civil service is just one of the institutions here. Amanu Bakwa, a war public service, me set his record in straight. And now, up to 2003, the local government was under the civil service, but 2003 under His Excellency John Ajekunku, he created the office of the local government service. So since 2003, we have office of the head of civil service and the office of the head of the local government service. So I want to clarify that before I continue. That's a question, Ankasanu. Madikai akan wansem me my contribution towards the ministerial appointment. No, but you see, we need not to go there. Every president has a 4-year mandate from 7th January of the year after election. So President Akufo-Addo had his from 7th January 2021 up to 6th January 2025. So within that period, the government that is exiting or that has lost the election is still in control and is still responsible for the governance of the state. And BBC that is the government that will be held responsible. It is not the government that is in waiting that will be held responsible. So it is important that we clarify that. Of course, for the issues of good governance and then to ensure transition based on the Presidential Transition Act and all those things, it is also a say abaya otisu a obekonu mani nye bibia edi abina ana e dey how bebre aban foforo na ebeba so no. But over the years year to the Fourth Republic in 1993 when we had our first transition of political power in 2001 yehu sa adie 2009 we saw it but on a lower scale. 2017 I mean that time the na yenyi and we also and it's recent we all saw it. And then as a developing nation which is being touted as a democracy having been consolidated, we shouldn't be repeating the same thing. But in 2024, after the election, we also saw the same thing happening. For me, as a political scientist and a student of public administration, I don't think that should be the way we should go. We should allow order to prevail in the affairs of the country so that at least we can have peaceful transition. So because of this, we say our democracy is consolidated. But the democratic consolidation because democratic consolidation now there were minimal and then the maximalist perspective and then you do maximalist wa nyama weni nanu eha adwin yes score democracy no eba form kakra nti nyam meka nsewani se sa nyama na ekoso no enye
yo mami misa we say nyama na ekoso na enye abang bi beba wa fa nipa onwie ne term ya ogusu fa nipa abang foforo oban o say menti asesa anu nti nipa na wa fa won kra won kwotena fie ye yi won adi saa de no uhune den
yeah me that see and I me be say it is not right enye one but because enye as anase eye anase enye no I just say yen share the conditions or the circumstances ye gigi amanfo now say you bed you into the public service no procedures wo ho mra ewo e just say yen fa share insise wo ho e just say yen fa so ansa na yen gi obi wo public service any of the public services so mbisaya ni say omufa sa insise ni so ansa na omufa ni pakrona na that is the first question that you say yen bisa se omo amfa sa insise na so na se omufa ni pa sebe enye medu beko abakosem kakra we say 2009 yeah omampinya onya baby call his excellency Professor Johnny Vance Mills oba so no omu form within that brief period no they made them to go and then after they finished doing their audit and everything then they recalled those who were qualified were retained and then those who were not qualified I mean whatever they had to do to them they did it to them. So for me ufa insisheni so na say ufa nipa whether wa lose election or wa win election or for me it's not my problem.
Insisheni na way insisheni na den.
No, but the issue is that in the public service before you pick somebody in the public service one I mean it is the Public Services Commission that is responsible for that. So did the person apply? Did the person go through the interview process or the examination? I mean, whatever means that is used to select the people. No, did the people go through the due process before the appointment? Did they go through? Just this week, Forestry Commission. So the point is, you see, institutions are there, the rules and the regulations are there. Say, omu betche kwa eji say yemfasu na yemfa bibia tu pepepe. So say yandi inshishe nuswa, anu na edi how ni breye as a country.
Na mami misa na say onipa akona kɔ wa fa nhyehyɛ ni nyina so pɛpɛpɛ na wo ngafa ne sɛ ne wo ngafa na so aban bi betuma ayi na di wadwuma mana.
You see, the nipa no wafa process ni so pɛpɛpɛ and say evidence for her say the process was followed genuinely. My brother, they just say you be need no enye na kwan so.
Okay. Mami nsa misa won so aya wo hwɛ nneɛma ni bi nso ya wotumi hu sɛ yo aban no nya woto aba ne wie ne pɛ na transition teams no na wɔn akasa akyerɛ wɔn ho sɛ mempɛ sɛ wɔyɛ sɛ mempɛ sɛ wɔyɛ saden ɛyɛ ne kwan a na ɛnyɛ ne kwan.
You see, Madika Akase say every administration has a mandate. Now, mandate now administration no if the mandate is not exhausted, I mean they are still in charge of the affairs. But the issue ni say enye idea edi how beba abandoned for na urban. Don't do anything that will saddle the government, the incoming government with problems or with issues.
Okay. Doctor, yo, medawase na ayi wo friend den maba studio, that's pa. Lawyer Esari. Yo, who concluding remarks? Our first topic 1 minute. Now for second topic, memfa mo wesu.
Me concluding remarks. Well, first topic, no one say nidium wa yera mama. Ajumpo a tie. Ninti o say o pow. Asiafo 60 no. Nidium wa sa ajumpo no. En guide no. On face ajumpo ni nye adwuma. Bra o sanso pow
staffers no. Okay. Right. Lawyer Sebe, concluding remarks. 1 minute.
An agric minister, 10 deputy agric ministers. Na say you be a kasa yesi tu ano pepepe. Ya enso yen adwuma. Na Ghana timi fidi the whole of West Africa and I say even beyond. Emesika kesi ba o man mu a. Eno na me mani beje ho. So me view there, I'm not just for the number but the efficiency. Enti say the nipa baako e na air to baby. Na say at the end of the day no adwuma no me can say bebu nka fa say but ye enye effective and as all the 100 akobu baby enye effective.
Does it when your results are?
When your results. Nemo we the nipa to say results neighbor. Let's put the right people there, sharp people, not just obia say my party tino.
Maliba, I think yes, I would mention that I think they probably haven't seen you on the call.
Say aban no ma obi salary to akatu 25 to 30% cry. I can say hey, and yet isa. Now say to 10% say papa because president now say our professorship no doctor ship ne kuta problem. So media I am for appointing the right people to move the nation forward. That's what I.
Okay. Lawyer Sumpa Bajo. Yeah. Lawyer Maliba. Good morning.
I think that Lawyer Maliba will call us, but I'm happy. Yeah. So yes.
Lawyer Maliba. Good morning.
Morning.
Lawyer, a quick one. Near share. Just nkoma ya kana se wo hwa President Mahama o hye mbo obama yen asuafo mechira ministers 60 na wa memfa ne se wa yara na yenhwe presidential staffers 8 na ho ne ma no owura abuginapo say wonga doso ama wo hwe wonga ketua kora wode ma won na e be equivalent to that of a cabinet minister obi wa equivalent to a minister bi wo kora obi a oye MP no san ye minister sankomo yi wo de wo ye NDC ni papa aben wo kan wo ne den
Mejidi say father say ma President Mahama abaso because na ye were 120 ministers until what me the best 60 a ebinum krampo say it me the 40, and I'm aware that in some countries no kra on drew 30 years, so we can still go further, but this is a good start. Na say ohwe abojuna ko na kasa no say your presidential staff or more equivalent to the minister. I can't see how a presidential staffer would ever be equivalent to a minister, because ocean minister what V8 what your friend saying house boy or garden boy what your friend saying at times deputy minister. Menjindi said this president staffers have got all this. So still it is better than the Akufo-Addo time. Na numbers now what can Menjindi say mo nyina mate say your friends Felix Fosu-Kwachaba akaka say so far no there was 60 ebinu krampo say was 30 presidential staffers. During Akufo-Addo's time, when he was a member of that government, Abu Junako, now your presidential staffers was above the roof. Until nearby bia, we can call for an improvement, but nearby bia, this administration has done far better now on one Kasane administration. But I don't disagree with people who say that we should further cut down costs. I don't know. Mejidi say we can go further than that. Hello. Hello.
I can hear you, but I think that
Yes, I can hear you now.
yeah, I don't know if the people in the studio, Doc, my name's out.
Lawyer Maliba. Yeah, lawyer Sompa
Yes,
lawyer Maliba.
Meet you, pa.
Nia meka ne se abuginapo enkomo no ejina se sika na wodi tua saa advisors no mo ne 8 no bi wa wo hwa any ministers any cabinet ministers eyepe ndize wo ka kire mu se oye staffer keke numbers no wo form na wo tua ne so much na just say ministerial position na wo de akwagosi ayi wo friend na wo ye wo staffing area ho no presidential staffer area hono wudwun ho den saden
Debbie. I don't like people who just talk. What the figures by. So one for figures bar. You and me shouldn't be wasting our precious time this morning to be talking about that. One non kwana on who here say a katuano the same. But how do we believe Abu Junakbo? So he should put the figures out and let us interrogate it. Because me, I can't engage in such arguments or discussions when there are no evidence to show, say, president staffers are receiving as much as ministers. I don't engage in that.
presidential staffers ya wo NDC mu a aban ya pa won yi wo de won toto ho a won equivalence be den in terms of won ministers, deputy ministers and MPs. Ubetuma kire ba kwa bi ngbo so that you give us a fair idea of what exists.
From time immemorial, there was presidential staffers in Nkrumah time. Now was presidential staff. This is not the first time. Abaya every soon there were presidential staffers. They are not equivalent to ministers. They are not, except those who have been appointed as ministers of state in the presidency. Now I can see so much of them in the MPP. But this time, no, I'm not sure there are more than 2 or 3. But the presidential staffers, no, and yet, or more, who are close in terms of ranking to ministers, they are not.
Need the presidential staffers against the backdrop, say, were bureaucrats, technical officers who can do all this work. Remember, you and I know, say, one day speed work, a Juma Nankasano, a technocrats, and he advises he aids no Huniama. Unyen say, Brasso say, we don't need them.
Well, let's argue for that. But let's also understand, say, Oko Ekoye Ejuma Bebia, you need trustworthy people who can assist you to execute your mandate. Nipa Adrin Unim. We have seen instances where public servants, civil servants, call them local government servants who are in the system before you get there as a minister. Time without number. You've seen, sir, Omatimi Amma minister, no, I have mistakes be brave. Mala Misa is one. So I think, sir, Drew Bebia a brofone Druno, where even ambassadors Kurampono and yet president appoint Omo. But that person knows, sir, I'm working for my country. Our mindset, no, and yen Drew Hoyer, and that is very true of us. That's very true. Else, why would a public servant, when him say, well, a public or civil servant, will be working against a government that one and say, there be that government I didn't vote for. Why would they be extending anger to the new government? So there are instances you who say the public servants, have decided say, omo dear, omo political party bidding. When you get to that point, you have no other alternative but to be working with these presidential staffers so as to avoid things that befell some ministers.
Waha Virginia ba konso waha na or question or the bibi kakra ka wama. Yeah. Lawyer sorry.
Yeah, senior, respectfully, the section 6 of the Presidential Office Act 1993 Act 463, it says that presidential staff are entitled to salaries, allowances, facilities, and privileges that are determined under Article 71 of the Constitution. So into Usha, Section 6 determine how our presidential staffers are to be paid, are to be remunerated, and the privileges are more enjoy. Into when no may draw attention. I think that now.
But that doesn't make them. I understand you. That doesn't put them as
ministers and deputy ministers, but the law requires that equivalence. The law stipulates that equivalence. Yeah, so and then that's the only correction, and we are best about attention and the attention of our viewers as well.
Oshe sa list now, and your president staff one or that doesn't make those who are there equivalent to the ministers. It doesn't make them equivalent to the ministers. Or more so your friends and judges ever honor. Your friends and auditor general or more honor.
National Media Commissions, Lands Commission, Public Service Commission.
So if you look at that, you can use that argument. It doesn't mean say because they are Article 71 holders or more equivalent to ministers. No. It is when it comes to only that part. Almost they are enjoying the ex gratia.
Lawyer Amaliba, Mebaho, Yereko, second topic so. And lawyer Sumpa, 1 minute.
Yes, concluding thoughts.
Yes,
No,
lawyer
the
Sompa,
mechanic.
mereba ho, but mame 1 minute na menhwɛ na memfa amane bi ntugwa. Me pa kyerɛ amanfo ne atiefo sɛ program wobɛhwɛ Facebook live wobɛtumi ahwɛ Angel TV News na afei Angel 102.9 ɛno akyi no yɛwɔ WhatsApp wobɛtumi the WhatsApp messages afa hɔ line 0551 669 325 na mɛkyerɛ tiefo ne ahwɛfo ɛne wɔn ayɛ nnwuma sɛ wobɛtumi asponsor program yɛ mangana wohia sɛ wopɛ sɛ wo sponsor megye di sɛ wohia paa ɛbɛboa w'adwuma wobɛfrɛ yɛn ɛwɔ telephone number so 055 6792 324 anaa nso sɛ 057 389 1474 miri timu bio sɛ wo pɛ sɛ wo sponsor program ya ɛyɛ yɛ mangana ya wo benya wo sa telephone numbers yi so 055 679 2324 ana sɛ 057 3891 474 lawyer Sompa 1 minute for your concluding remarks na fe fa yen wura second topic ni mu na kyerɛ wɔn adwene ɛwɔ saa de no ho yɛto abɛwi a aban agua na engu yɛ aban otumi yɛ sɛ ɔfɛ nipa wɔ adwuma mu otumi so yi nkrɔfo adi wɔ adwuma mu ne tumi apem na empem yɛ na den ne ehu na den ne yɛti 1 minute
on the question of whether or not Omanpenyi Mahama Pau nipa more than the 60 as he promised, no, I don't think the facts support that. As to whether I say wafakweti kwine so through presidential staffers to pack up the numbers, no, whether or not that is true, I don't think the facts support that. I however hear the argument to say if indeed the staffers are commensurate with Article 71 Ebiakana ebebo mohono would be high. And on that question of efficiency is judicious use of resources. Effectiveness outcome Until on the effectiveness question senior kind the person moye say bino ebe miti the occurs obey as to whether or not obey using nipa 100 and nipa 10 a question of efficiency. They may on the measure of efficiency a budget allocation. In the same and for me, the single most important measure will be to wait and see what the budget says, the allocation for the if they've been effective or otherwise, then I'm sure the people of Ghana would decide. In terms of whether I say numbers, whether I say Sikano, I don't think the facts support that. I think that, even on the bedding on the exchequer, we can only see after Tuesday, and I would wait for the budget to be able to speak concretely to that. That's my concluding words. On the second question of sacking public servants, no, my main starting fee, I think your constitution, 191, 191B says that a member of the public service shall not be dismissed or removed from office or reduced in rank or otherwise punished without just cause. Into the real legal question, let's say, Sebiobi, any and the public service is divided to include civil service, judicial service, audit service, education service, prison service, parliament service, health service, statistical service, national fire service, customs, internal revenue, police, immigration, legal service. So there's a tall list of public service, senior, mini opinion BD of which the civil service is part. The constitutional mandate says you can't sack a member or remove that member unless for just cause. So the real question of law is what is just cause. Mini Apenyi and my respected senior Maliba has made the point to say it's a fact in culture. Sebi, untimi you and you say there are people who are saboteurs and maybe may have been planted so at the late time for the mere fact that they are there to sabotage the government. These are facts in culture. Asebi, yebetimi abuyani aguso. But does that amount to legal just cause? I probably do not think that is. The real question is the question of procedure and what is the real process? Have they come to own their office in just means? If the answer is yes, my legal response to say is why how far so you no if it's not in accordance to law, sebi and what tiamra. So my view is that sebi abaye continue. For persons that constitution and the act gives the presidency the powers to appoint directly, then it is obvious that the person who has the power of appointment also has the powers of disappointment. Indeed, the president directly is giving a power to appoint her, then a subsequent president has the powers to disappoint. That goes without saying. The more nuanced conversation here, or more who are not directly appointees of the presidency, who have come to assume public office legitimately, I think that the Dikaya Meka Nese Sebi, if you Uisan Crofono, senior constitution, without just force, and then now Tiambra, irrespective of the fact in culture, say some of those may be your political opponents who may actively sabotage your government. If it is not without just cause, and maybe I would be bold enough to insert just legal cause in the constitution. Sebi, minister to me, not me be shame. But maintain as without just cause, no, would only mean what is legal just cause. So if the just cause does not have legal basis, I would to say that will be an upfront of the law. These are my preliminary comments on the second issue. I'm happy. Not specifically, no. Yes, I make us say.
Lawyer, second topic near here. Yo, second topic na share dismissals. Appointment any dismissals and near my to abewie yafa nipa which one go is it just or not?
Say a public service officers a nkofo we bureaucrats, civil servants a ban won free a ban yi a revoke one appointment ye wo emra bata ana oman no emra na de ahyehye ba nkofo mu ejuma say ye fa nkofo ejuma ana se yi omedi no emra so kyerɛ nkwan a ye mfa so na wo hwɛ the 1992 constitution a eminua so sompa e kan ho asɛm no kan pain article 195 na asɛm yi kra as court da ama supreme court ama humwaye na wo hwɛ 195 or kase a member 191 fachem of the Yamana Pono 1992 constitution. I say a member of the public service shall not be victimized or discriminated against for having discharged his duties faithfully in accordance with this constitution or dismissed. Dismissed or removed from office or reduced in rank or otherwise punished without.
That's 191.
Inti emano ebo obi a ya fa no wo civil service mu ebo no ho ban said ya obi a owo tumi ya to abama no aye ma ne tumi ombon wura ho ye civil service na on sha say oyi nkofo edi da bi esan say adwene da yetima ye de hyehyɛ mmara no sei ne say wɔn a ya form say ɔmo mmoa aban no na ɔmo mmoa yentimamufo no ɔmo mmoa in terms of service delivery say ye pe kana card o pe Ghana card o go National Identification Authority obebo enya o card e man na dey tell me say e be boy ye need to provide the service for the ordinary person na say dey ya ejuma na obeye no yem woti no ana yemfa akwansidie bi amma na afemu say dey ya say yesesa okandini a omampani a onpakono nso na ejuma ye no ebeye bibie wo ho da bi ye pese onye free no onye na ejuma iti no mmane kire se aye mapon no kire se onpako sa no mutumi yi na di keke sa keke na obeyi na di aje se uwo nyinaso bi na nyinaso na Supreme Court so akire nyinaso no sa nyinaso na waka no wa kire na o share case of Theophilus Donko versus the Attorney General. And the interesting thing is that a member of the NDC was the lawyer for Theophilus Donko. Supreme Court or can it pay or say?
Promises no stability.
Public service, a public service officer appointed in accordance with Article 195 of the Constitution may not be removed save in accordance with the terms and conditions of his or a contract of engagement. In the absence of such for just cause pursuant to Article 191 and 195. Inti hano Febino Supreme Court say ube you be dia just say contract out the man contract of employment. Wona ne chinchan wona ne mo sha shase and no na munyina so emfa nyi ne fi ejumem na se eba na we no nkofo ye from public service officers omunya political appointees eba political appointees mapon ma president to me say otumi tumi na dey asenesa no esan se ontumi nwo bebia bereni abrebia no obehia amanfo na maboa no na sa tumi no opone kakra ma obi se je fa ye we mame se dia ne ye ka che Ghana fo no ye betumi aya ama o nti sa nkofo no mapon ma mampeni tumi se ompa omo nti so pa for example Yera Mahama mana man tumi so ompa director of national road safety Yera Amaleba se Mahama ne time so na se okwa on the Yera Amaleba den eko esan se Yera Amaleba oye political appointee na nkofo no what share Yera Amaleba ase no any directors ne officers accountants clerks wo ne officer wo boa no wo na dwumadi mu no san nkofo no na mmapon no kire se president kwa onye onu omo na eden eko esan se enye president na pon na 2 minimum se monye na mo fanye adwuma no da bi eye mmapon na mu na emo mo sa 2 minutes say omo fanye se adwuma no under the Public Services Commission. Into Public Services Commission, the Supreme your Constitution no set up that commission. Na emo mu tumi say ongo omo mpa nkofo a omo beboa ma aban adwuma die akoso. Ene nkofo ene na protocol sem from bureaucrats and now civil servants. Into civil servants and what share Yera Amaleba ase no. Won no wo tumi no wonya free mrapon ni mu wonya free Yera mampani ho. Do wo answer to Yera mampani because ono ye chief administrator of the country. Ono no che say yemfa we into ha. Ono no determine say na political scientists for be kan no public policy. It is so say ya kwan say you making sure say ya kwan na wo markings ah. Yera Amaleba na be say djuma na ma Yera mampani. As the director of the Road Safety Commission and the institution reference and but I think it's Road Safety. Nti ono no be say djuma no ama Yera mampani. Na Yera Amaleba so ono amu na ntumi nya djuma ni na. Nti he will now rely on the civil servants for no. Nti say okwa on Yera mampani na eden eko. But this civil servants no share na say directors ni ade no what do we ho. new one foforo bar director foforo bar and a political appointee bar obe ono be sa boam abo ni pa ko no a obe share area amadeba nan no aye road markings no aye mampani be kase yes say kwan bia enya road markings it eba just course Supreme Court I think 2023 in the case of Ghana Center for Democratic Government and that's CDD versus Attorney General, and it's popularly called the Demolovo case.
Went to the room.
Same way about Tama, Yera Mampenina Nekufado, or catch Yera Demolovo say he should proceed on leave. Just say, why Juma uncle leave that you know? You see, how the uncle leave kakra. Na Supreme Court, it's asem or kasi leave from a neko or share say obian to me share public
lawyer sorry ntiem
okay obian to me share say public service public servant or be share say uncle leave there be unisa to me no obeko leave na chese ejina contract anu Europe kono ayede ewo and a bargaining agreement same for in the case of Theophilus Donkoff as Attorney General. Our case say opese opami obi a hwe no contract na wo de man no eno na ye hwe e be gina so na nye say Kwame Asah-Asante. So in the same vein a just cause cannot be say Kwame Asah-Asante no e say nia nkofo a wo boa na asuafo ye wo adwuma no enso won so e say wo there be that cannot be the explanation until one contract of service that will determine say who contract I expire na not any political convenience so that sorry I know President Adjoins and there be we on there be but any sir me that's
mama ko lawyer sabeo lawyer yo asamo ye kan ani kire he wo wa kwan hu ne den
Honorable Abu Jinapo, he spoke from a privileged position. Or Nankasem no say, why deputy chief of staff paying? A hono jina or de kasem or kind. And as I said, so kind no. Here are of Usukwachibayano. One fat any counter argument are not. Say entesa no more than any different. For that reason, into no not my yenka say yenim say staffers. You rank him as deputy, your friend is saying, ministers. And when we talk about, with respect to my colleague Sumpa, the budget thing, no. Budget be a can't just say chief of staff and as a sika a day man, no. And we are not comparing Akufo-Addo and John Mahama in this discussion. In Quebec, can be bad. What we are comparing is what Mahama said and what he's doing. So we are putting those things in perspective. Me go forward. You see, I believe said the Akoso President Mahama amemu ye obefa akunyana no say or sign akonechi the broni beka say with the benefits of hindsight say me Akoso nyina no say na onim na osa ye fofra enka yo ye no mesusu and I'm a junior and onye ne sa letter na or my chief of staff extra one letter and he yeah no after 7 December me did say enka onye ne sa in fact me who you know they are my report here and I hear say and do my reverse and that would be good professionals are or manya omodwuma omokwakoe to say teachers nurses ni ade ah mu nyina so no yare book no. These professionals, Upo MPP bar Bemuno, 2016, not 2012 nurses, Eufi, and no chassis. So, Obefa 2012, 2013, 2014, Ultimate Casse, Maba 2016, 2020, Maba 2017, nurse baby 2017, 18, and I made from the major backlog no, at the Abu, Obako Chino Akofa. It is a Yamia Domna said the Ohono, you push your move into the system. Not a who he say, because where you would into say. Health Minister Kase, Omuni will be a dear, the papa. Media politics is hard to say, will be a DNA papa, no matter where or one, Kase the papa. And you know, sir, way of mass dismissals just because, say, Mabayambano, and yet.
Okay.
Secondly, our state say, Yamrano, transitional the man boy transition no ho ebra no ye miemu kakra because it is not fair say ya to aba na o free akonya so a na say enu nti wo sesa onkrofo ekogu system no mu dia then you've not been fair to not only to the abaya urban but to the entire system no o program ni din ya mede o say e
ya mangana
ene ya dwena ho but say obo say sa appointment ya bebre ya omo ayeyi they were not appointed after 7 December na processes are sas ya da ene bedu ba bia du see ehwe mu nso a I was not expecting President Mahama say Obekas were you be because yeah papa me nua lawyer board di ndom level aye obi a President Mahama ebeka ya to abana chikra no e na ono ne yede one ne ba you have so many examples it yan hwe de ya ebeboa oman no yakọ Dr. Obreninti
me da se mamenko lawyer Male bawo na onka bibi kakra na fe emfa dwumadini mrawe lawyer Maliba amano so yo menka etiefo ene ahwefo se
Hello.
MTN say wataga na echi won aboa Ghana akwanhoro nyina so woka Ghana ho ene Ghana mfishia edusia wotwa won adi eye ne nansan yi wo se wo magana tirinkwa wonim se Ghana one Ghana benanto akonakra na da na wogina ho wo ba o menhu hai mfirihia edonu akonuni na won agina ho abomoden ama woguso ye won yema se na woyen won pa abone se Ghana fo bekoso ene won aye adwuma ene won agina se ne ese damu na won so wo hye mo bo se wonni mu hwamo MTN obi aseye enunti yo lawyer Maliba yo
Yes.
lawyer sa second topic a yeka ho asem yi mabe yi nkrofo adi nkrofo ene mo nya adwene ne ho ne ma briefly yembre atia yen enunti kire wadwene kakra wo ho na afei yemfa adwumadi ne mrawi
Yo. So oye penyina na otu kwan na wosan ba fie na nkasakasa ewo ho se otu kwan no se ni se na esi so obefa kwan bia obefa asiesie nsem no ye ba ene yeti se nkrofo bi ye appoint omo on the 7th December to 7th January no na yamfa kwan pa ye appoint omo na se oye omampanyin na oba na sa asem na de tu anima so obehwehwe hom inti letter na your president chief of staff Echiroye no was for those people to stay back home and auditing will be done in terms of how they were employed. Omo na ye employ omo in terms of procedures, no, they will come back. And I think when the matter of the nurses came, Otie Akando, and he said exactly what I'm saying. And it is not for me to say that Neomo ye no enye and I say ye. It is for me to say, sir, omo hwe say omo a ye fa omo no omo efa kwampa and omo efa omo adwuma, they will come back. Those who didn't go through interview, no aptitude test, and yes, omo say munko adwuma na ya ban free muno. Those ones I have problems with. And so be rest assured, auditing is taking place when it is clear, sir, Oman Fight Kwampa, we'll put them aside. Those who have come through the right procedure, no, you can be assured, sir, they will bring them back. So this is not a matter. But I think, sir, moving forward, no, we need to, because there are some actions if a government is leaving, no, you can term them as malicious. So when you say ya to bana atuya na kwa, then you say oh, let me burden this government with a lot of responsibilities. Let me ensure that public sentiments, if they take a step, public outcry will be against them. There was that kind of attitude as a government. I'm thinking, say, moving forward, no, your Transition Act, no, should include matters such as this. Ebia, when the elections are over, 7th January, no employment till the new government comes. Even Grandpa can say we should even include entry into contracts, because if you enter into a contract, unim say you are leaving office and I say you may not come back. You are burdening the other government. Now also no programs and policies are whatever. And I think that the Transition Act must include some of these things so that it will be clear for all of us to know.
Na yɛde nkɔmmɔdi no abɛsi mɛda mpanimfo a na wɔsɛ wɔn bere a na memere dɛ adagye onim koraa wɔba ha ɛyɛ
but on the line number back just to say something to end Wadaroma
aseda yɛwode lawyer Jonathan Esare aseda yɛwode lawyer Amaliba aseda yɛwode Dr. Akpeku Agbabade aseda yɛwode lawyer Yaosompa aseda yɛwode Ganafo a mo hwɛyen tie dwumadi yɛ mangana aseda yɛmode yɛ mpanimfo a mo kyinkyim afiri ma bibia kɔɔ so fɛfɛɛfɛ mi gye de sɛ awurade de nkwapa kyɛyen dasɛnɛ yɛbɛhyia medamas